everybody, it's Tara Green here, and it is June 28th. It's the new moon today at 7 degrees Cancer, 23 degrees precisely, and as you can see here, we have the sun and the moon and Lilith quite tightly placed together, so they are in a conjunction there, which is perfectly mirroring the current situation in the US with the Roe versus Wade being struck down. So Cancer, ruled by the moon. The moon is in its home place. So this is the once a year new moon in Cancer. It's all about a new beginning in terms of feeling emotionally safe for women. The moon is the womb itself. So the sun and the moon, the sun is highlighting in the dark the womb and the darkness, the fertile potential, the dark womb, the dark void. That is the goddess's position per se. That is the beginning of everything. Everything is born from the darkness and dies in the light. That's a Carl Jung quote. Maybe it's a Rudolf Steiner quote, actually. Okay, so Lilith, the first woman before Eve, is known to be the death-bringing goddess. Okay, so the death-bringing goddess is associated with menstruation, menstrual blood, which was considered to be very, very sacred. And menstrual blood is tied in, of course, to women's fertility cycle, and also because she chooses to be alone rather than to have Adam dominate her, she goes to live by the Red Sea, which is a metaphor for menstrual blood, and her symbol is the snake. And the snake shedding of its skin is the same as the uterus shedding its lining. Snakes are symbols of eternity, and so women's wombs are part of that eternal cycle of birth, death, and transformation. So the woman has absolute right over her own womb and her own body, and that is spiritual law, which is ruled in astrology by Jupiter. Jupiter at 7 degrees Aries is exactly squaring the sun, moon, and Lilith. So Jupiter and Aries, the women are going to go into big battle. They're going to do it alone. They're going to say, screw you, men, we don't need you whatsoever. And I can see that dialogue taking place on Twitter already. This is insane what's going on in the US right now, and it's there to teach women to go, no more bullshit. I don't believe anything the patriarchal has told us is a total lie. Everything. Okay? The whole thing about the unconditionally loving mother. Yes, a mother is unconditionally loving archetypally when she conceives, when she's pregnant, when she gives birth, when she nurses that baby on demand, when she does the continuation concept up until 7 and maybe up until 12, 13. And basically then she gets to take her own life back. Okay? Even though she's still a mother, she's always going to be a mother. And the mother also has the power to discipline the child and to love them and to teach them. So Jupiter, the great teacher. So the women have to take back their power. Okay? The gloves are off. This is Jupiter and Aries. This is Amazon warrior's time. Okay. Now, the big thing about the new moon today is Neptune turns retrograde within hours before the new moon at 25 degrees. It will be retrograde until December the 3rd. It's only backing up a few degrees, but also notice that Juno, which is the feminine form of genius, is conjunct Neptune. So here we have very powerful symbols of the divine feminine here, really operating very strongly. You know, traditionally the term genius was just reserved for men, and it was associated with Jupiter. Now, Jupiter's wife, Juno, was the feminine form of genius, and of course that was written out of history on purpose. So here's Juno bringing her 8-sided ability to look in 8 dimensions, 8 directions, you know, to do it all. Now, as Neptune moves backwards, we're going to redream. We're going to re-psych ourselves up. We're going to review. We're going to retreat into our dreams, into the wisdom of the womb, into the wisdom of the divine feminine. This is a very, very important new moon. It is close to the US sun. The US sun is 12, 13, 14 degrees of Cancer, connected to the most beautiful, biggest star in the sky, which is Sirius. Ceres, the great mother, right there at 19 degrees Ceres, is also conjunct to the US sun. So there we have these two very powerful symbols. Lilith and Ceres have been close in Cancer, and that should have been a sign of this bringing up of the birth-giving and the death-bringing mother. There they are right there in Cancer. So we're dealing with them very strongly. Now, Saturn in Aquarius is trining Ceres, actually. Saturn is still retrograde, 24 Aquarius. Saturn is sextiling Mars at 25 Aries. So sextiles are easy aspects, of course. The sun is squaring Jupiter. The moon is squaring Jupiter. So there's some tension here. Venus is sextiling Jupiter, Venus in Gemini. So this is about the split in the minds. And Mercury is still in Gemini, split in the minds of everyone. And of course, this is, of course, an on purpose done to disenfranchise women and to split people into two groups again. Again, still pitting men and women against each other, pro-choice, no choice. Women totally have autonomy. So the states that are going to uphold that, and it should have been made and ratified into law like Obama said he was going to do, and he never did. So this is also part of leading up to the second US Pluto return, which happens exactly again on July the 11th. I'm going to do a separate video on that and talk about that, but this is also part of that. So Pluto is sextiling Neptune. Neptune is sextiling Uranus. Uranus conjunct the North Node. So the North Node is revolution. Revolution grounded in terms of our resources, our tools, our bodies. Our bodies ourselves was the old kind of feminist book that came out because women didn't know anything about their own bodies, their anatomy. I mean, now it's leapt forward so much. So the South Node in Scorpio rules reproductive issues. Okay. Now Mars and Pluto both rule Scorpio. So there they are, in a heavy square aspect. I mean, that one comes exact in the next, actually on the 1st, on July the 1st. Mars and Pluto have an exact square that's also on Canada's birthday. So it means there's going to be a lot of fights against the plutocracy in Canada and against Trudeau's tyranny. So that aspect, people have been very, very angry. And so things are explosive. Things are coming out in the open. Again, these big dark shadows are there to be exposed so we can see just how messed up it all is. Okay, and there's Neptune kind of in the middle there in Pisces. So the illusions, the delusions, the projections, the fake news, the Neptune in Pisces rules viruses. So as Neptune moves backwards, there will be probably a review of really all the fake news. It brings inflation, debt, sky-high oil prices, and again, Uranus conjunct the North Node. We need to have our own resources, our own tools. We need to be able to plant our own food and make our own tools and get very, very resourceful because it is going to get worse. Again, this is a planned, slow demolition. Okay, Saturn is squaring Athena. She is the battle warrior. She is at 27 Taurus conjunct Algol. That is Medusa's head. She's one of the most powerful stars in the sky. Again, the stars that are demonized are the ones that are the most powerful. So Medusa, okay, the myth about her head being cut off is just a symbol that the patriarchy created to scare women. It's a symbol that we're destroying the matriarchy. Well, too bad. That's over. The Saturn in Aquarius represents the patriarchy. Represents new technologies, surveillance, limits, obstacles, testing, history. But Saturn in Aquarius is also about revolution. So there's Athena there saying, no, we're going to just turn you to stone by looking at you. And we know that you're just scared shitless little boys, scared because you know that you're not really needed, scared because you know you have very little to bring into the world. Women don't even need men to get pregnant. They can self-conceive. And my friend and colleague Maureen Walton has just gotten her book written. It's been kickstarted. It'll be out soon. She's going to self-publish. It's a pretty amazing book. I've contributed my story about Lilith to that book. And so really, this is the time when women take back their power totally. Okay? How much do we have to be pushed to the wall? I mean, if you can't read the signs on the wall, and that's what astrology is all about. It's about giving you the signs and giving you the symbols so that you can be ready. And if you're not awake, if you're not aware, if you're not reading those symbols, if you're not taking them into your heart, then Pluto will push you to the wall and make it very, very painful till you can't ignore it anymore. And so, if you want to do things the hard way, that's Taurus. They tend to do things the hard way, as do all of the fixed signs, Saturn and Aquarius, North Node, Uranus, and Taurus. It's all about the revolution. Leo, this chart is set for Washington, D.C., the Cancer new moon is exact at 10:52 p.m. tonight. And so in this chart set for Washington per se, it has fixed signs on 3 of the angles, interestingly enough. It has Aquarius ascendant, Aquarius rising, ruled by Saturn, traditionally ruled by Uranus, conjunct the North Node, so we have to follow that. Our bodies, our North Node. Leo is the descendant, 17 degrees there, ruled by the Sun. The Sun and the Moon, are of course connected with Lilith and with Ceres, actually. So we actually have a stellium of water. And of course, this new moon, even though it's an inward, a new moon is when we go within. The women traditionally went into the red tents. They were all bleeding together at the same time. They would retreat for 3 days, just like the moon. So if you're bleeding in sync with the new moon, please stop. Traditionally, it's 3 days. Retreat into yourself. Bleed freely. Give thanks for your sacred moon blood. You're at the height of your psychic energy when you're bleeding. Okay? The word taboo originally meant sacred, so this is what women have to take back their power every inch of the way. Okay? Now, first you have to honor your moon blood. Then you find out that you don't have to bleed all the time. That isn't necessary. You don't have to be suffering with big period cramps and cysts and all this stuff that women get these days from a host of things. What's in the food, what's in the water, what's in the vaccines, what's in the everything you touch, what's in the nanoparticles in the air, and so that, and the stress. Women are totally open. Women are like water. All women are water. The womb, if you're born a woman, you have a womb. That's what makes you a woman. You feel everything. You're open. So even if you never want to have children, you still have a womb. You have the potential to bring in a soul into that sacred place. It is the most sacred organ in existence. Okay, and to dishonor it and to disrespect it, or for men to think that they can control it, it's like WTF. Women, we have to wake up collectively and go, enough, 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 and take back our power, because it was never true that we didn't have it. We've just been forced and coerced and manipulated, and laws made against us because they are so scared of our power. And so all you have to do is look at these little scared boys, and you can call in the Great Mother. The moon is in Cancer. Call her in and go, my son, I can see how scared you are. I can see how you feel so worthless. This is part of what it is to be human, but you got to remember that you're an eternal soul. And so you are part of me and I am part of you. You came out of my womb. Every man and every woman came out of a mother's womb. It is the most sacred place in existence. So this battleground over her womb is actually totally ludicrous, because there is no laws, real laws. This is man-made laws, obviously. Sacred law ruled by Jupiter is all that counts. And in the indigenous tradition that I was taught, there's 2 sacred laws, one of which is that everything is born of woman or of the feminine or from the womb, and nothing should be done to harm the children. And that means the literal children, and we're all children, and our inner child. So, pro-choice, whatever your religious beliefs, no woman wants to have an abortion. It should not be used for birth control. Women need to take back their power. Men need to be made responsible for being, if we're doing sex that way, they have to be responsible for creating the pregnancy. But the women end up with the baby in their womb, and then they're being made to be responsible. It is totally bad training. Where did the men think that they're not responsible? You know what I mean? I would say they have thousands of years of, my vision now is that they all need to be turned over their mother's knees and spanked, okay, and put in their place, because they weren't. Okay, so we have nothing to be afraid of. Okay, so now the women have to stand up and say no, and get your finger out and point it in their face and say no, and just stare them down. It doesn't matter if we're physically smaller, we're actually way bigger and way stronger. So we have to use our inner strength, we have to use our inner masculine. I did a visualization, and what came to me was Guinevere. There's a famous painting of Guinevere knighting Sir Galahad or Sir Lancelot. It's a famous British painting, a pre-Raphaelite painting. It used to be on the print of it, used to be on the wall at the Grail Springs Wellness Retreat, where I taught for 10 years. And that image was very powerful to me, because that's what women need to do, is they need to empower their inner masculine. The inner masculine acts at the behest of the feminine. This was the myth of the Holy Grail. That's when the divine feminine was honored. That's when Chartres and Notre Dame, those beautiful cathedrals, worshipping the divine feminine in France. Those ley lines, the whole thing about the Da Vinci Code, that's all real. To Scotland, going through Paris. So having your own inner masculine come out with a big sword to protect you. Okay, that's the job of the masculine. When the woman needs it, he is always bowing down to the feminine, to honor the feminine. And that's why the earth is in such a mess, is because the Bible, the made-up, man-made stories, said that men get to dominate the earth. All right, what else have we got here? Eris. Okay, Eris, the mischief maker. The sister of Mars is actually right beside Mars. So Eris is like the revenge goddess. Okay, she likes bloodshed. She likes to go to war. In the old days, there were goddesses of war and battle, and the feminine was honored. I know some people say the true feminine does not go to battle and war, and I say no, that is not true. There is an aspect where the feminine does indeed have to defend herself and stand up for herself. Okay, you can still maintain an inner balance, but you have to have both. It's just like in the original story in the Jewish mystical tradition, God has two masculine and two feminine sides, and in that story, Lilith came first. She is the death-bringing goddess. She comes first, and then the Shekinah comes after. She's the birth-giving goddess. So women need to take back Eris. She's the troublemaker. She's the uninvited 13th fairy in the Sleeping Beauty story. She was written in that way. Okay, and she is, again, conjunct Mars, her brother, ready to go to battle, squaring Pluto. So Pluto is actually telling us, if you're going to do battle with think about Pluto going through Capricorn since 2008, the beginning of the whole subprime mortgage scandal. And now as Pluto's getting ready to leave Capricorn, think about the destruction. Think about all of the shit that Pluto and Saturn have brought to the surface. They're coming together January the 12th, 2020. That was the symbol of COVID. Okay, so think about Pluto prodding everybody to look at the shadows. I mean, how much more horrible are we going to allow it to get before we say no freaking way? And the people, Saturn and Aquarius, the people have the power. I don't believe that the so-called age of Aquarius is really going to begin until next year, when March enters Aquarius for the first time on 3/23/2023. You've heard me say this before because it's a very powerful time. Saturn would also enter Pisces at that time. So that's a big, big change-up time. So right now, with Mercury in its sign, okay, with Mars in its sign, with Neptune in its sign, with Saturn ruling its sign, with the moon in her sign, that's many planets, the 7 classical planets. Okay, Neptune is not one of the 7 classical planets. So the moon in Cancer, Mercury in Gemini, Mars in Aries, and Saturn in Aquarius. There are 4 planets in their own ruling signs, and that makes them very, very powerful. Okay, now again, the friction is very high right now. There's lots of fights going on. When Mars enters Taurus, things will begin to settle down. So I would really wait until Mars enters Taurus. Don't say anything. Don't do anything until July the 4th. Mars enters Taurus and Mercury enters Cancer. They literally enter 2 new signs at the same time within a half an hour apart. So use this time to go within. Listen to your inner womb. Sit by the water. Make water offerings to purify the water. Feel Neptune kind of taking you into the watery realms. Go back in your mind's eye into your mother's womb. Remember, that was the only place archetypally you ever felt totally safe, nurtured, protected. You were still a pure soul in your mother's womb before you stepped into the earthly plane, the heavy, dense earthly plane. It's a paradise too, but it's also not. And so we have to look at that really honestly and squarely. I'm suddenly going, no more rose-colored glasses. So for me, take off the rose-colored glasses. That's Neptune moving backwards. And look at what's going on from all perspectives. Vesta, the root word of investments. She's at 6 degrees of Pisces. She is trining the sun, the moon, and Lilith. So invest in your own intuition. Invest in your insights. Invest in trusting your feelings first. That's for everyone. Whatever your gender, feelings, intuition comes first. All right. In this chart, the part of fortune at 17 degrees of Aquarius is right on the ascendant. 17 Aquarius. And again, squaring Uranus, squaring the North Node. So there's that tension. We need to move forward. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to be strong. We need to be stubborn. We need to not back down. Like, be the bull. Okay? Saturn square Uranus in the North Node is why the crypto is down as well. So I want to wish you all the best blessings. I would really encourage you to take time out to go within, to do water blessings, to get into the water, a long shower. Again, if you're bleeding, bleed out into the bath, and let yourself feel how sacred you are. Everybody's sacred. Everybody has their own inner feminine. We need that duality. We do not erase women have wombs. We do not erase genders. We do not say people who are pregnant. That's more of the mind fuck. Okay, don't take that pill. So if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at tarot.com. All of these teachings come from the light. Trust me. We have to take off the kid gloves now because we've been pushed too far. That's all there is to it. Psyche, the asteroid of the soul, is conjunct the vertex in this chart. Psyche is opposite Juno in Virgo and squaring Mercury. So again, we have deep, deep psychic and genius insights at our behest. Take this time to listen to your dreams. Listen to your dreams very carefully for the next 4 months. Well, Neptune is in its underworld journey, replenishing itself, just like the goddess does every month. And so there's going to be a big, very powerful full moon, which I am going to get back and do a workshop for, so I might as well mention it now. July the 13th, very powerful full moon. So I will let you know about that one if you want to get in touch with me. I'm at tarot.com. Many blessings.